once we get that right, which is for me the most important thing, that they have, first of all, respect. The second one is commitment. The third one, passion. Those three ingredients are non-negotiable.
Hello and welcome into the Non-Negotiables podcast. I am Gavin and I'm here today with Justin. How you doing, Juz?
Good, Gav. How are you, man?
Yeah, great. Especially after Tuesday night, massive night into the quarterfinals of the Champions League for the first time in 14 years. I think we were both confident that we'd get there. A little bit harder than we might have liked.
Yeah, definitely. I felt really good going into it, as anybody that listened to our last episode knows. I know you did as well. Definitely a little shaky though, for sure. I think Porto had a plan, and I think their plan worked pretty well for the most part over the two legs, but we were able to figure something out and overcome, and that's kind of all that matters in knockout competition.
Yeah, they definitely executed that plan to perfection, right? They shortened the game by keeping the ball out of play as much as possible. They broke up our play by giving away free kicks and rolling around on the floor and getting free kicks. The corners, did you notice we changed our corner routines entirely? Ben White wasn't marking the goalkeeper. There was less corners going just under the bar. So, they set out, obviously, as the underdogs to disrupt what we were doing. And fair play to them, as much as, no one likes Sergio Conceição. And I'll be honest, I don't like Porto as a club. I never have done. There's something about them that rubs me the wrong way. Going all the way back to when they beat Liverpool in the UEFA Cup final, that team with Deco in it that were constantly rolling around on the floor. That was 20 years ago and they were doing the same thing then. I don't like them, but you have to say they really did execute that game plan well.
Yeah, they really did. Full credit to them. I think we could have done some things a little better, but they definitely showed the world a pretty nice blueprint on how to get under our skin and kind of neutralize this there a little bit, especially away from home. And I saw a lot of frustration from players that I normally wouldn't. I'm sure we're going to get into this, but I thought Saliba looked pretty shaken, and it's just kind of odd. They definitely knew what they were doing.
Yeah, so let's get into it. Before we do, a little bit of housekeeping, if you like. I just want to clarify where we're at on the bookings, because this is something that's pretty difficult to understand, really, the way that UEFA do these cumulative bookings for suspension. So Declan Rice and now Kai Havertz, after last night, have picked up 2 bookings in the Champions League. 3 bookings equal a 1-match suspension. They get wiped completely clear after the quarterfinals. But there's another little wrinkle in here that most people don't know about. One of those bookings actually gets wiped after the round of 16. So although Rice has been booked twice and Havertz has been booked twice, for the purposes of UEFA's suspension rule, they've both only been booked once. So if they pick up a booking in the first or second leg of the quarterfinal, it doesn't matter. It just gets wiped afterwards. If they pick up a booking in both legs, they will miss the first leg of the semi or our first game in Europe next year, whichever way round it goes.
Yeah, which is kind of ridiculous and convoluted, but yeah, I didn't know that. So yeah, I appreciate you laying that out.
Yeah, I don't really understand why you don't wipe it after the group stages, but I guess the point is they don't want people missing finals for a booking in the first leg of a round of 16 game and then picking up another one in the second of the semi-final or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. Like you said, seems a bit silly to me, but that's the way it works. So at least Rice and Havertz aren't walking that tightrope of one booking being a missed game.
Yeah.
All right.
Especially, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you were going to say especially Declan Rice, right?
It didn't need to be said, though. Yeah.
And did you, but were you a little bit scared at one point on Tuesday night when Rice was getting into it a little bit with a couple of the Porto players? And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, God, don't get booked.
I really wasn't. I wasn't worried, and I don't know why, because I think it's totally like a reasonable feeling to have. I just, he strikes me as just really controlled. I never really worried about it for a second that he was going to get carried away, a la Xhaka from a couple seasons ago. But yeah, I mean, it's always dicey, especially when you have opponents like that, like Porto, that we're constantly trying to rile us up.
Yeah, and we'll touch on the discipline side of it when we talk about our favourite subject, the referee, later on.
We're not going to talk about the referee.
Let's start at the beginning. Let's start with the starting lineup. Juz, I want to know your thoughts when this come out, because my thoughts were Zinchenko and Jesus can't be anywhere near ready to start. That's the only thing I could think when that starting lineup come out, because I've got to be honest with you, that starting lineup really didn't make much sense to me.
Yeah. Same. I think we went into this pretty in depth on, when did we record? Monday or Sunday?
Monday.
I think it was Monday. Yeah. Yeah. I especially on that the left side, I thought I didn't like seeing Kivior and Trossard there together. I thought for sure one or both of them was going to get switched out, but I think it's got to be what you said. I mean, what Jesus ended up coming on what, the 82nd minute. So yeah, I don't think
fully knowing, by the way, that we had extra time. That's one thing I will say, is that I think both of those subs were made knowing that we were going to extra time,
and possibly penalties too, maybe.
Yeah, and I think maybe the thought process had been, I mean, and I don't really understand this thought process. My thought process is I would rather have seen them start the game, go as long as they can, and then come off. You've got 5 substitutes. If you have to use one at half time or just after half time, it ain't that big a deal. I would rather do that than bring someone on at 82 minutes and then break down on 110 minutes, and you've got the last 10 minutes, with 10 men. So I didn't understand it personally. And I think the first 10 minutes especially were incredibly poor. And I thought it was a direct result of the team that we put out as much as anything else.
Yeah, obviously, Mikel Arteta knows, significantly more than I do. But with his squad planning and game management, I really can't figure it out. He makes a lot of decisions that I definitely wouldn't necessarly make.
He doesn't like making changes, right? Like, he doesn't like making changes to starting lineups, and he doesn't like making changes in game. Like, if a side wins, he just puts out the same side again.
Yeah, it seems that way. And, I thought this was going to get better, as he got more and more of his own players in, because almost the entire squad is his now, whether, they got contract extensions or he bought them. Yet he still only seems to trust about 14 players.
Yeah, I think that's true. And that's going to be put to the test over April and May, right? Like, we're hoping to play 15 games the rest of this season, 10 in the league, 5 in the Champions League. That's what we want to play. Those games are all sandwiched between March 31st, when we play Manchester City, and June 1st, which is the Champions League final. And there's a 2-week gap from the end of the Premier League season until then. So we're sandwiching 14 games, hopefully, between March 31st and May, I believe the 19th is the final day of the Premier League season. That is an awful lot of games in a short space of time if he's only going to play 12 players and he's going to play Jorginho every game.
Yeah, and this international break that's coming up, it's the last one, right? There's not another one after. Yeah, okay. I'm just making sure.
I mean, you desperate to see Uganda versus Ghana and Sweden take on Bulgaria in the middle of May, in the middle of a championship running?
Yeah, I mean, it's so dumb. I get it, because we have the Euros this year quickly approaching, but man, I just I think especially when we're like within touching distance of a really good title challenge, you especially just hate the breakup in games. Yeah,
it's nuts. So he went with the same team. It was a strong bench that we had. That he didn't want to use, but we did have a strong bench out there. But like I said, the first 10 minutes I thought were exceptionally poor. Porto had 62% of the ball actually in the first 10 minutes, and really they weren't doing anything with it but lumping it up in the air. It's not like we didn't actually give up any chances. We just didn't really create anything. And I thought Jorginho looked tidy in possession, and I think that kind of skews an actually poor performance from him.
He was leggy.
We were
wasn't he?
overrun in that midfield quite badly. The distance between Jorginho and Rice was too much. They were far too far apart. I thought Rice was too far forward, and Jorginho just couldn't stop anyone from running through. And the fact that Jorginho stayed on as long as he did, I thought was crazy because you could see how badly he was struggling.
Yeah, I think you and I even texted about that during the game. That when did he end up coming off? It was really late.
It was really late because you could see. I mean, you could see in the first half that he was getting in trouble by that running through the midfield. And like I said, he was tidy enough on the ball. It wasn't that he was giving the ball away or anything like that. It was just that we couldn't get to grips in midfield. We were struggling to get the ball to play because of that. And it didn't go on.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to say, I mean, we like foreshadowed this too in the last pod, talking about, well, is he going to be able to start and be, as accomplished 3 games in a row, 3 important games in a row? And, no, he looked at
the answer was absolutely no.
You're right. It was the gap. The gap between them was huge. And
I thought Partey should have been on at half time. To be quite honest with you, I would have had Partey and Jesus on at half time. And the fact that Trossard scored an absolutely brilliant goal, I think covers what was a pretty bad night from him as well. And Saka wasn't much better on the other side. But the real problem with Trossard is the off the ball stuff that you don't see with Martinelli, the pressing. They were able to get out down their right-hand side, our left-hand side, consistently. Erdegaard and Havertz would push up and start to press and start to trap. And Pepe would just be able to open his body and play it out to the right because Trossard just wasn't joining in the press and wasn't where he should have been. And I really thought Trossard was a problem on the night. Now, he scored an absolutely fantastic goal. It was a brilliant goal, and without that, we wouldn't be going through. That's fair play. And there isn't anyone in the squad, I don't think, that I would rather have been in that position than Trossard. But if it was up to me, I wouldn't have had him on the pitch.
Oh, yeah, I agree. It was our left side and Jorginho, really. And I would have even maybe considered a triple change, but, it just kind of goes back to our conversation from Monday. But yeah, I agree. Those were kind of the problem areas, Jorginho, Trossard. And I mean, I don't think Kivior necessarily was like awful or anything, but I would have had Zinni in earlier too.
Yeah, do you know what? There's a narrative around Zinchenko now that I don't know that he can actually overcome at this point. There's a huge section of the fan base that are just against Zinchenko no matter what he does. And the reason they're pro-Kivior isn't because they're pro-Kivior, it's because he's not Zinchenko. He got roasted a couple of times last night, Kivior, and he also got caught out of position once and lost the ball once in areas where if Zinchenko had done that, I mean, first off, it would have gone in because that's just Zinchenko's luck so far this season. But if Zinchenko had done that, they'd have all gone absolutely nuts. And because it's Kivior, it just gets completely overlooked. All of the numbers show you how inferior Kivior is to Zinchenko in every aspect. Yet the fan base, a big part of the fan base, won't have it because they're just anti-Zinchenko. And I don't see any way for Zinchenko to get that back now. I think it's just done. This reminds me a lot of the Granit Xhaka stuff. Without, Mikel Arteta came in like a white knight to save that situation. I don't see that happening here. I just think Zinchenko is basically done now with a lot of this fan base. And I think they're morons. I'll be plain honest with you. I think if you can't see what Zinchenko does, I think it's on you, not on Zinchenko. But I think that's where we're at.
That's interesting. I mean, I've seen some anti-Zinchenko sentiment, but it's not been anything like Xhaka. I'm more on like Reddit than I am on Twitter. But but yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. It's not tough at all, really. I mean, I agree with you that Zinchenko gives so much more than Kivior, especially going forward. But I don't think he's near as suspect defensively as a lot of people I've seen, are making him out. I mean, he's gotten done 1v1 a couple times, but I mean, everyone has. It's not like it's some thing that happens constantly. So I'd really like to see him back. I think now that Rice and Havertz both seem to be gelling, I can only imagine the the strength we're going to have going forward when you have Zinchenko picking some of those passes too. So the sooner he's ready to start and get back in the side, the better for me. And I don't really care what any of those haters say, really.
No, but I just think it's got to the point now where he's not going to be able to get it back. I mean, you look at the goal against Nottingham Forest that was all on Saliba, and people want to just lay that on Zinchenko when Zinchenko did a good job getting out there and forcing basically a worthless lofted cross in the box that should have just been nodded away. Saliba gets bodied and they score, and everyone wants to jump on Zinchenko. And I just think that's where he is with the majority of the fan, and I think it's a majority of the fan base now. I think that's where he is, and like I said, I just don't see a way back from here for him, to be honest with you. I mean, I think he'll play a few games between now and the end of the season for sure, but I don't see him being here next season.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, you know, this fan base, they love a scapegoat, you know.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You have to have one, right? That's kind of how they are. So you have to have one. And now Havertz is playing well. It's Zinchenko's the easy target. So that's how it is. Talking to Saliba, I thought Saliba had a bad night to add to his bad night in Portugal. I'm not overly worried about it. I think it happens. Your players are going to have bad games, so I'm not that bothered by it. Like you said, I think Porto played their hand absolutely brilliantly. We had quite a few players, as we said, who were off, not just last night, but in the first leg as well. I'm not going to dwell on it. It was a bad night from Saliba. He's going to know it was a bad night. It was a bad night from Saka. He knows it was a bad night because he said on TV afterwards that he'd had a bad night. We just move on, right?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think there's anything to worry about. Porto had a plan and they executed well. I think that's really all there is to it. And I do worry about, maybe some other teams in the rest of this run-in, kind of copying that blueprint. But I mean, that's.
You know what though? I don't know. I just think they happen to be. They're a bit like Brentford have got this thing as well, where I don't think you can just say, well, that's how to stop Arsenal, so you do that. I just think they happen to have a style that is very difficult for us to deal with. It's kind of the worst. It's not quite a deep block, but it's almost a mid block. They're very much a long ball team. Yeah. They keep a couple high rather than just one high, which means that we can't do our usual Gabriel take one and Saliba drop off. So I just think that there's just certain things about them that are particularly uncomfortable for us to deal with, and it's the same with Brentford. I don't think it's a game plan that can be particularly replicated by another side.
Yeah, that is true. They did play. I'd say Brentford is probably like the closest, but you see more instead of having like Tony up top. I feel like they were going to their wings more.
Yeah.
I really don't like
Conceição.
Yeah, Conceição, number 10.
Yeah. That's Sergio's son.
Really?
That's his son. Yeah, it's his son.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's his son. Yeah, I mean the midfield Pepe, I thought he had an absolute stormer. Him and Varela in midfield I thought they were brilliant. Credit where it's due.
And Pepe too. I thought he was really good.
Yeah, and other Pepe, but I don't like him very much. I don't like talking.
Oh yeah, I don't either. Yeah, but at 41, man, and that header he got for that he just nicked when I believe it was Havertz on the far post. I mean,
yeah. I mean, and he bought the free kick for the goal too. I mean, the way he spun around, he knew what he was doing. I'm not going to argue and say that it wasn't a foul. I mean, I'm not sure that it was, but it certainly wasn't egregious. But, the one when Odegaard went down in the area, which definitely wasn't a foul, I don't see how you really give one and not the other. They kind of look like the same foul to me. It's a little arm across and a little tug, but there you go. But such is life. I think more worrying for me was that I think not for the first time, I thought Mikel had a really bad night. Like I said, my personal opinion is that he got the starting lineup wrong. He was very, very late as usual with the subs. And when he made them, I tell you what, if I had one question that I could sit down with Mikel Arteta today and ask him, it'd be this. When you brought on Eddie Nketiah, what were you hoping for? That's it. That's all I want to know. What exactly are you hoping for when you bring on Eddie Nketiah in that situation? Emil Smith-Rowe, Fabio Vieira, Reece Nelson are all sitting on the bench. Any one of them could have come on, played on that left-hand side, left Jesus up top, and been absolutely fine. What are you thinking bringing on Eddie and Nketiah?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. And it's really interesting because this is his first appearance in.
He hasn't even been bringing him on. He's been sitting on the bench and not coming on for 2 months. And then he brings him on last night. It makes no sense whatsoever. I do not get whatever he was doing last night.
Yeah, and I mean, only 3 subs to, I mean, it's,
And we knew we were going to extra time for a long time. I don't think that
Yeah.
we had any intention of going full out for that game last night, right? That looked to me from 75 minutes like 2 managers who were quite happy just to sit back, and if a mistake happens, it happens. But other than that, accept what's going on. I don't think we tried to push for a winner last night at all. We were too worried about giving one away at the other end. Which I don't like either. That doesn't seem to be and the fact is, it's maybe a little bit hard for us to accept that defence is now our strength rather than going forward. We're just a very good defensive team, so you can kind of see that. But to me, I didn't like the game plan from 75 minutes onwards when I thought we should have been going for it. But the sub bringing on Nketiah when he hasn't played in months, I don't know. I don't get that. It was a very weird thing. And knowing that you're going into extra time, which we did, knowing that you get that extra sub to make it up to 6, why are you not using anybody else? But again, that strikes me as a manager that he's looking at what's going on the pitch and he's more scared of losing it than trying to win it.
Yeah, I think so. And I believe we touched on this already, but I mean, the bench last night is the most stacked I've ever, I've seen it in 20 years or 18 years. And, to just bring on Jesus and Nketiah and Zinchenko out of all those guys. Yeah, I mean, he never even tried to really switch up the plan. You're absolutely right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this has kind of been a complaint I've had with Arteta for a long time. And I do think he's shown a bit of improvement.
I think he's been a lot better in the Premier League.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's translating to the cup competitions. And I think Europe especially, and I get it, he's got no experience in it as a manager. Our pedigree in it is awful. So I do kind of get it. I get the fear, but I think that's going to have to change and change quickly.
Yeah. I mean, this was already pretty dicey, and it was one of the easier games we could have had out of the round of 16,
You say that, and I do agree with you team-wise, but it also may have been one of the worst we could have had stylistically.
Stylistically, you're
like.
You're
I'm
right.
not sure that a team like Barcelona or Paris Saint-Germain give us as many questions as Porto did. Because you know what I mean? Like, just the way they play, I think it's pretty simple. The way Porto play, it just doesn't suit the way we're playing. Now, the other thing, I know you don't want to talk about it, but we got to touch briefly on the ref because I was so confused as to what was going on last night. I mean, first off, the ball was in play 66 minutes of 120. He added 1 minute of injury time on in the first half and 3 minutes in the second half. And we didn't even play the full minute in the first half. He blew up on 57 seconds of the minute in the first half. That is just absolutely bizarre. Some of the things he's given as a foul, fine. And then he's letting other things go. Sometimes in the same move, he'd let a foul go, then pull one back. As I said, the foul for the disallowed goal, fine. I get why you say it was. I don't think it was a foul, but I understand that the guy's getting his shirt tugged. So if you want to give that, you give that. But then to completely ignore that in other places on the pitch where he was. And then you get the booking scenario. So we had Gabriel picked up an early booking and walked his way through it. All right. Havertz picked up a booking that was never a booking. And then he let other challenges go that were absolute bookings. Like Havertz. Havertz should have been booked way before he was booked. But the one he got booked for was never a booking. So I don't know. I thought he was so inconsistent. It was bizarre. And that's got to be tough to play in when you don't know what the rules are. And you know what I was thinking, Juz? We criticise Premier League refs all the time. What this shows me, European refs are worse. They're worse. All the talking that we do about, we should recruit the best from all over the world. We might already have them because these refs in the Champions League are abysmal.
I don't necessarily know if I agree. I will tell you though, the game was obviously kickoff was 9 p.m. for me. So I was already in bed for part of it, and I had a fan on and kind of the volume down, so I didn't have commentary on for the whole game. And I do think that it almost helps with your, sometimes I feel like the commentary can get you riled up, just by saying certain things. So without the commentary,
it's interesting that you say that, because I was watching the TNT Sport feed from England, and they had Ali McCoist and whoever the moron is that commentates with him. They call him Fletch. I don't know who he is. Yeah. And I generally don't watch the English feeds because of how bad the commentary is on it. And Ali McCoist is actually usually one of the better ones. They were horrendous. They had no idea what they were talking about. None at all. They just didn't have a clue. And to the point where they were saying that we should sub Ramsdale on at the end of the game for the penalties. Really? The man's abysmal from penalties. Like, Raya's not got a good record from penalties, but Ramsdale's penalty record is atrocious. So they didn't have a clue what they were talking about. So I do agree with you there. Ali McCoy's constantly sucking the ref off definitely made me more annoyed with him.
Yeah. So, I mean, I say all that to say, though, that I didn't really notice anything like super egregious, but, again, I didn't have like the commentary like stoking a fire or anything like that. So I noticed some inconsistency for sure, especially like seeing a foul and having it whistled or carded on one side and then the same foul not. And, I mean, as annoying as that is, that's something every ref, I've seen be a little inconsistent. But like the Saliba one, for instance, I mean, that was, I'd have given a card for that. Havertz, like you said, probably should have been booked earlier, but well, I'm looking at it too. It looks like Pepe is the only one on Porto that got booked, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I just thought that I don't know that I've seen a more inconsistent refereeing performance in 35 years of watching football. I really don't. I came out of that game last night and I could not tell you what was a foul, what wasn't a foul, what's a booking, what's not a booking. I had no idea because it seemed like he was just blowing up at random. And it was, I thought after the first leg, I thought, well, the ref can't be that bad again. And I think I was wrong. And the fact that it's Leandro Trossard's twin makes it even more bizarre.
Yeah, and like you said too, the stoppage time too. I did notice that, and I was like, this is probably about half of what we should have.
Crazy. All right, well let's leave the officials alone now. They've got their own issues they've got to deal with. I think they probably need therapy or something. Your boy Sergio Conceição. Uh-huh. So let's just touch briefly on his comments after the match when he says that Mikel Arteta insulted his family. So Sergio Conceição has got previous with this. I don't know if you know this or not, but in 2020, he said about Pep Guardiola, I've got a lot to learn from Pep Guardiola, the way he pressures referees, talks to opposition players and the opposition dugout. He's a fantastic example. Oh, sorry, give me 1 second here. He's a fantastic example. I have to learn this. We are angels compared to the other dugout. He spoke about our country using ugly words. Guardiola's attitude was extremely unpleasant. So that was in 2020 about Guardiola. A year later, about Thomas Tuchel. I was insulted by this man who is next door. I told the referee and the fourth referee, and they heard the insults. My English is not perfect. There is no point in talking about it. There was no exchange of words because I was focused on the game. I don't know exactly why he reacted. That's just the ones I can find in the English press. Sergio Conceição, as well as being an absolute prick, seems to get insulted and offended very, very easily.
Yeah, it seems that way. I didn't make the connection on history there, but I mean, I'm not surprised. He just he gives off that kind of
he's like Diet Simeone, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that kind of the young Portuguese winger ego, that we know several players that have had. I don't want to name names, but and then to have such a big ego but have it bruised so easily is it kind of par for the course, I guess. But
yeah, well, that's the thing. It's very he's obviously he's a bit Jose Mourinho, right? In that he loves a soundbite. Do you remember? But after the fight, Arsenal came to play, we came to win, and all that. It's just who he is, I think. And I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if we see him in the Premier League in not too distant future. Someone maybe replacing Emery at Villa or something like that. It wouldn't surprise me if they, Wolves is a good example. It wouldn't surprise me if we saw him in the Premier League. before long, because he does look like a decent manager. He's just an absolute knob jockey. But what can you do? It's he is what he is. So let's move off of the negatives now, because we've been pretty negative so far. But I honestly think in terms of performance, I do think those two legs were a pretty negative experience. In terms of result, it's fantastic. I don't care how we go through, right? I just care that we do go through. That's all that really matters. And the fact is that on Tuesday night, even in the first leg, really, we never looked under threat, right? They had one chance when the guy hit the post and then missed his own rebound. They scored from the arse end of nowhere right at the end. And other than that, they didn't have a chance over these two legs. I thought we absolutely shut up shop on them. They were never going to score.
Yeah, I watched the highlights just before we jumped on air here. I try to do that every time just so it's fresh. And we had a lot more chances than I remembered. I mean, nothing like crazy close or anything.
We had a lot of not quite chances as well, right? Like Saka got to the byline a couple of times and then just couldn't make the cutback. We overplayed a little bit when we didn't have to. You know, we didn't make the pass that we should, and sometimes we didn't take the shot. I thought the one that Ødegaard put just wide on it with his left foot when he let the ball run all the way across his body, that really is one that he has to hit with his right foot first time, and he just didn't want to do it. And I think there were a lot of chances that could have been better chances.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say that, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but one thing I am a little bit disappointed in is that we didn't get kind of some more minutes into the legs of the guys coming back. And I don't even just mean for fitness reasons, but like Jorginho should have come off earlier. Jesus, Zinchenko.
I think we touched on that already, and I'm not upset with Arteta for not throwing people who aren't ready into a Champions League tie that's in the balance, right? That's not what it is. Partey is clearly not ready to play a part in a game like that. Otherwise, he would have been on, right? I don't see any way around it. I think if Partey was ready to play in a game with that intensity, he would have been on for Jorginho, and he wasn't. So to me, that says he's not ready. I think
our next game is City, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But we've got nearly 3 weeks for that game. So it is going to be interesting to see what he does there. But I just think it's clear that the players on the bench couldn't have been ready, because if they were, I think they would have been used. You know, with Nelson and Nketiah and stuff, that's different. He just doesn't think, well, Nketiah he brought on for some crazy reason. But with Nelson, he clearly just doesn't think he's up to it. And with Smith Rowe as well, they've both been back enough time now. It's just that Arteta doesn't trust them in these situations.
Yeah, Vieira as well hasn't.
But I mean, he's hardly come on, so he's another one that's kind of being nursed back into it, I think.
Yeah. I was gonna make a point, and it just slipped like literally seconds ago. All right, go ahead. Sorry, All
right. So, the other thing I want to touch on here, and I feel like I do this every week, so I apologise for everyone that's getting bored of it, but I can't help it. I'm obsessed with talking about Martin Ødegaard.
Yeah,
that performance last night, I thought was, in keeping with every other performance he's turned in over the last couple of months, was absolutely sensational. The pressing from the first minute to the last, some of his touches on the ball, you could smack the ball at him, hip height from 3 yards away with 3 men on him. He brings it down, turns twice, and then plays Saka in through a gap you didn't see. It's incredible. The level he's playing at the minute, we've never had anyone playing better than Martin Ødegaard is right now.
Yeah, some of these, you just said that. I don't want to make a comparison, but some of these performances are very like Cesc-esque to me, in the sense that,
do you know what? I think he's so far above Cesc. I don't think Cesc is even close to the level that Martin Ødegaard's at.
What?
No, I don't. Honestly, I don't. I think Ødegaard, the way that Ødegaard's playing right now, are what Ozil truthers wanted Ozil to be times 10.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably agree with that, but yeah, his little pass through too for our goal to Trossard was great. I mean, super hard work, getting past the guys, and then just like,
well, he won it. First of all, he won it high. Then when he gets it back, he takes that touch and shimmies to the left. Then he plays that pass at the point, and this is what I was saying to you on the last pod, right? He plays a pass that forces the receiver to do what he wants them to do with it, right? Like he did it for Ben White for the winner against Brentford, where he played that ball where Ben White's only option was to clip it back from the byline to Havertz, who was coming in. He did the same thing again last night. That ball, there was an easier ball to the outside of the fullback, but that's not what he wanted. He wanted Trossard to shoot. That's why he shuffled, moved to the left, and came inside. I think it's just incredible. He's like Bergkamp. He sees 3 moves ahead. He sees not just what the next person's going to do, but what the person after that is going to do with the ball. And he forces you into doing exactly what he wants you to do with it.
Yeah, his intuition is like a number 10 is just brilliant to see. And I think that is like the best way to word it too, is that he can force other players to do what he's thinking just by setting up the ball like where they have no other choice, or where it's the easiest option, I guess I should say. And it's really, really incredible to see.
Yeah, he bends games to his will. He absolutely bends games to his will. He's just on such form at the minute. He's on fire. And I don't know. I think it's just amazing. And the leadership from him, anyone questioning why he's captain, I mean, you can't have any questions now. Like, that is the leader of this team in every single possible way.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, and I mean, real captain's performance too. Even when a few others were struggling, I never had any doubt. Basically, since that West Ham game, where we went 3-0 down in the first half, and he basically single-handedly clawed us back.
Yeah, that was when he was on loan.
Yeah, ever since then, and to do that as a loaned player, I mean, he's forever like earned my respect in thinking, he was captain from that moment on.
Yeah, to be a single player in a football game and force the issue like that in multiple games week after week, you've got to be something incredibly special to be able to do that. This is Bergkamp in 97, 98 stuff. That what he's doing right now, I think is absolutely incredible. Another player I think, Judge, that we need to touch on real quick is David Raya. I think, after the weekend when Ramsdale obviously made that mistake, but then he made them 2 fantastic saves in the second half, I think we kind of, we knew that was drawing a line under his Arsenal career, right? I mean, we knew that was Ramsdale's last game. This is Raya's spot. But I think Raya on Tuesday night may well have kind of made that spot his own for a little while now. I thought during the game, he was calm, he was composed, he was taking the crosses like he usually does. But I'll be honest, when it went to penalties, I'm thinking we've got no chance here because Raya's penalty record is as bad as Ramsdale's. So I'm thinking the only chance we've got is if they put 3 into orbit. And boy, was I wrong. The first penalty save was brilliant. I mean, it was a penalty save that David Seaman would have been proud of. It was absolutely fantastic to get their touch on that, to get it onto the post. The last penalty save, I mean, all right, it's not a difficult save once you've gone the right way, but he did go the right way for it. And then he almost got another one where...
got his hands on it.
Yeah, I mean, again, you know my thing with small goalkeepers. If he'd have been 2 inches taller, he would have kept it out. But he got on it, he got good hands on it, and was really close to keeping it out. I think you've got to say fantastic. And there's no argument now. There's no argument about the number 1 now. Even if you're someone who would like to see Ramsdale in, there's now no argument that you can make for it.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of been settled for a while. But yeah, I can definitely see how it would have maybe solidified some Raya doubters. The saves were really nice. I'm with you. I didn't think we were like screwed per se, but I was a little worried about it because I'm familiar with Raya's penalty saves. But overall, being a team that attacks as often as we do, keeps the ball, smothers the opposing team when they have the ball, I'd much rather have a good ball playing keeper like Raya than someone that's capable of making ridiculously good saves like Ramsdale.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really need to say it anymore because we've said it so much, but the shot suppression that Raya provides by providing that stability is priceless. And it's, like I said, you just can't argue against it anymore. That's what it is. That's that put to bed. And I just thought I think Erdegaard was man of the match, But I think it's unfair when David Raya saves 2 penalties for him not to get it. Do you know? Do you know what I mean? So I think you kind of have to say co-man of the match there, if you like, because I thought fair play to Raya. That to me is his moment. That's him arriving. That's him cementing himself as number one. That's put to bed any thoughts that, I mean, obviously we knew we were going to make the move permanent anyway, but that's put to bed any thoughts that it might not happen.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it solidly, well, you kind of said this, but it, solidly puts him ahead of Ramsdale too, I think, which, I know we all love. I love Ramsdale. I'm sure most of the fan base feels that way, but Raya definitely seems like a stronger fit for the squad.
100%. I mean, when it was going on, I was firmly in Ramsdale's camp, and I said to you guys at the time, it felt a lot like the Lukic and Seaman thing from 1990, when I was proved massively wrong when Graham replaced Lukic with Seaman, and none of us wanted David Seaman, and we were all wrong. We were all massively wrong, and I think that's where we are again here. I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong on this. I still would prefer Raya to be a little bit better of a goalkeeper and 4 inches taller, but I can't argue that for this team, for this style, Raya is streets ahead of Ramsdale.
Yeah, definitely.
So the penalties that we took, just 4 absolutely fantastic penalties. Goalkeeper didn't have a chance with any of them. We have been excellent from the spot so far this season, and I was confident with every single one of them players walking up there. I have to say, my pessimism regarding the penalty shootout wasn't about our takers. It was about if we could actually keep any of them out. When Ødegaard stepped up, I had no doubt. The only one that I had the slight bit of fear in me was Bukayo Saka. And the only reason is not because I don't believe in Saka, it's because he missed the one for England, because he missed the one at West Ham last year. I didn't want him to have to go through that again. And that was really the only one that I felt nerves about. And the only reason that I felt the nerves was that. It wasn't because I was worried about him missing per se.
Well, I'll tell you, I kind of was, because I know he's pretty much the primary penalty taker for us now, but I never feel like his pens are that convincing either, But I mean, damn, did he hit a convincing pen against Porto the other night? So yeah, just going about what we were talking about earlier, I mean, when Rice stepped up too, I just knew, there was no doubt in my mind, him and Ødegaard, even Havertz, Saka is, a young leader in this team, but I think that, the steps he's taking, stepping up for penalties, stepping up for a shootout and stuff like that, I think it's great. And he continues to go from strength to strength there, I think,
Yeah, and I wasn't surprised to see Declan Rice step up and take one either. Yeah. I mean, he's, at the end of the day, I think he surprised us all with his dead ball striking, right? I mean, one thing we didn't think we were getting was David Beckham taking corners. Do you know what I mean? When we paid 105 million, that wasn't what we were paying for, but we got it. So I wasn't surprised to see Rice stand up. I knew it wouldn't bother him. You can throw the Emirates on his shoulders and he's fine with it. So I wasn't bothered about that. Who do you think was going to take the 5th one? Because this is interesting. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but basically the way the team were lined up on the halfway line, if you look at it as they went up to take it, the next in line was actually Ben White. It wouldn't surprise me if it was Ben White. But then I sort of think, well, the Eddie Nketiah sub makes such little sense. Could it just be that he was on to take a penalty?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. Before you mentioned who was next in line, I was kind of thinking maybe it'd be Jesus.
Oh no! Oh God, no!
Not that I wanted.
Jesus has got to be number 11.
Yeah,
right? I would rather see Raya take it before Jesus.
Yeah, not that I wanted that. It was just kind of that was kind of in my head. I don't know why. But yeah, I could definitely see the penalty shootout being a reason for Eddie. But man, that still just seems like such the wrong call for me. And then if you're going to do it just for the shootout, he only made 3 subs out of a possible 6. why would he not bring on Eddie in, like, I don't know, the 118th minute? Or
I know that's the other thing, is that he brought him on way too early for it just to be that. I mean, I kind of think that Occam's razor, right? Ben White was the next one standing in line, so it probably would have been Ben White. Ben White's exactly the sort of character that I would be absolutely fine with going up there, and he'd probably have Panenkaed it straight down the middle. So I would have had no problem. But it's just a fun question to ask. We'll never know, but it's just a fun question to ask who the fifth one was. I think it probably would have been Ben White.
No, and you know what? Like what you just said, exactly. He's cool and calm under pressure. He doesn't seem like someone that would let the gravity of the moment get to him, and he strikes a good ball.
Yeah, he does. He does.
Yeah.
His technique's good. I wouldn't be worried about it. And that's, in these competitions, penalties can be vital. I mean, Liverpool have won the damn thing twice on penalties. It's not like it's not like it doesn't happen in the biggest moments. So that's important. And I really do feel like we've got a group that are full of good penalty takers. And I don't give a damn how we go through. You look at them scenes at the end. That's what it means to go through into the quarterfinals of this competition that we haven't gone deep in for a long time. And I was just so happy when Ryan made that final save and we went through. It was relief. It was joy. It was absolutely everything.
We were all William Saliba.
Yes, basically.
Yep. So I don't know. It feels great. I mean, to be in the quarters, and I'm sure everybody knows the other 7 teams. I mean, we're in really good company there. I mean, there's the best clubs in the world, basically. And
we've said it so many times that you get bored of saying it, but we've got no European pedigree. We've never won this tournament. We are easily the biggest side never to have won it. And this feels like the start of a new era, doesn't it? I mean, this is what we were promised when we moved to the Emirates, right? We were going to compete with all these teams. Now, for 15 years, it looked like we were sold a pup, right? It looked like that was absolute pipe dream stuff. We couldn't compete. We weren't competing financially. We weren't even close. Looking back, Wenger was performing mini miracles a lot of the time, getting us in the top 4 while selling our best player every year. We watched teams like Bayern Munich and Barcelona come to us and just take the piss. We were not on that level. We were basically Rangers or Celtic at that point. Like we were nothing. And this kind of feels to me like the start of a new era. The stadium was absolutely rocking. To me, this is the future that we were promised.
Yeah, we haven't even really touched on the atmosphere yet, but the stadium was, I think, and that's making a massive difference. To your point, I do kind of, I don't want to go off on this because I know we could spend a whole pod talking about it. I don't want to, say Wenger was wrong, because I really think had, Abramovich and Chelsea not happened right there, we would have been set up as kind of a solid number 2 behind, United with the stadium move. But I think that, having an oligarch come in and fund Chelsea, it really set us back. It was bad timing for us.
Yeah, that's definitely for another pod, because there's 2 hours we can do on this. Because I the biggest mistake of that era for me was Wenger and then Gazidis completely misreading the economic landscape and completely misunderstanding that cash in the bank was essentially worthless. But then they were also hamstrung in that we were forced to keep a certain amount of cash in the bank because of the loans that we were having to pay back. But like I said, that's another part. I really don't want to go into that right now. It just felt so good, and it just feels like the dawning of a new era, I think. And to that point, that we actually took our share of the European Cup or Champions League prize pot to 91.3 million euros with that win over Porto. That is already by far the most we have ever earned from a single competition in a season. That's got to help. We dropped down to the 10th biggest club in the world in terms of revenues and in terms of value last year. We are going to jump back up to probably around 6, I would imagine, after this year. We need to keep going that way. Yeah,
definitely. I think even Spurs was ahead of us, weren't they, in the last one?
That ninth,
that I saw, and that's we can't have that. But the money is obviously great, and a club of Arsenal stature should always be there. So I'm really glad that it kind of seems like we're not just like a good Premier League side anymore. I mean, I would say, trying to look at it from an unbiased lens. I mean, we're one of the biggest and best clubs in the world again. I feel like.
Yeah, I think we've got to win one of these, right? Like, that's the feeling, man. We've got to win one of these. I picked us for this at the start of the season. I don't know that we're gonna win this. It's a big ask, but I just think we've got to win one of these. We've got to win one of these soon. I mean, these players deserve it. It's something that's got to come. So, talking about that, we're into the next round now. The draw is 11 a.m. tomorrow, which is Friday UK time. Are you on the same time as the UK at the minute? Because their clocks haven't changed. I think you're probably on the same time as the UK at the minute.
Yeah, maybe. I'm Central European time, but yeah, I don't think they jump forward maybe this weekend, right?
Yeah. So it's 11 a.m. on Friday. You hoping for anything in particular out the draw? Is there anything you'd really like to avoid? I mean, I guess you're like me, right? Avoid Manchester City.
Yeah, I want Barcelona.
Yeah.
If I could pick. I mean, and it's not like arrogance or anything. I just I feel like we're good. We're in a good place, and I would kind of love to get some revenge. I think all the teams in it are pretty good, but I think we could kind of go toe to toe with anybody. Just City obviously makes me a little nervous. Madrid, but I'd feel pretty confident against anybody else.
I agree. I mean, I'll always take the path of least resistance.
Which is who do you think? You think Dortmund is?
It's Dortmund. Yeah, it's got to be Dortmund. If you could give me Dortmund and then the winner of Barcelona PSG in the semis, I would absolutely snatch your hand off right now. But I'm not overly worried about who it is. I would really like to avoid Man City as much because of the complications that it would have for the league.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just think throwing 2 games against Manchester City in the Champions League in there in April, directly after we've just paid them in the league, I just think that's got to me at that point, that's advantage Liverpool.
Yeah, I think so as well. I'm hoping that if we don't get City until the finals,
it'd be nice if we were kept on the opposite sides of the draw. But you can't control that, and if we get them, we get them. But they are the one side that I would like to avoid if we possibly could.
And then I would say kind of the only surprise I did expect Inter to beat Atletico, but Atletico ended up
Yeah, and Atletico, I mean, I don't know, Atletico strike me. I mean, just hearing the name, and Diego Simeone and stuff, you're thinking, oh God, that's Porto Mark II, right?
Yeah.
Like that's Porto on steroids. From what I've been told, that's kind of not how they've been playing this season, but I don't know. I don't really watch La Liga, so I haven't seen them myself, but I've been told that this isn't that sort of Atletico team. I still think I'd prefer not to find out because I just feel like it would be a slog fest.
Yeah, I've not seen Atletico this season at all. But yeah, just historically, I hate playing them. I
exactly.
do.
And what they are. You know what he is. I mean, I'm guessing it'd be great for TV cameras, though, right? They could have one camera trained on Arteta, one camera trained on Simeone, and then another camera in the middle, and it'd be like a split screen and getting them coming together and stuff. I imagine the TV companies would love it. I mean, Richard Keys, Jesus, he must be creaming in his pants at the thought of it.
Yeah, I can see that, and I imagine, there would be some fireworks between management for sure, Simeone and Arteta. But yeah, hopefully we don't get them either. Not even just because I'm afraid of them or anything. I just don't
want to watch it.
Yeah, I don't want to watch it either. Yeah.
So, all right. So if we move off of that real quick, just touch on a couple of other things before we go. Ben White has officially signed his new contract, 2028, with a club option till 2029. Fantastic news, well deserved. I think he's been absolutely brilliant since New Year. I think he's been fantastic. He's been one of our best players. I thought he was excellent at the weekend against Brentford. I thought he was good again on Tuesday night. Happy to see that.
Yeah, I love Ben White. I really do. He's I think he did have some shaky moments, like the first half of this season. But
yeah,
like you
I
said,
would agree. Apparently, he was
yeah,
carrying a knock, and I think it
yeah,
kind of that kind of rings true, right? When you
yeah,
think he had a bit shaky performance, he went away. We had that break. He's got himself right, and he's come back.
yep. So yeah, though I'm ecstatic about it. I mean, the only thing I want to like drill home is that like I'm so glad that we can just make these contract extension announcements and it not be like this 18-month trial. Will he? Won't he? Sign? Because I feel like we've had to put up with that so much as a fan base over the last 20 years, and it's really nice just to be wrapping these big players up like it's just a footnote at the end of the day.
Yeah, and Tomiyasu. Just before that, actually, did you see Ben White has basically turned down the chance to play for England? He's basically said he no longer wants to be considered for selection. I'm assuming that's while Gareth Southgate and Steve Holland are there. And Southgate actually decided to reveal that in his press conference, which I think was weird. Apparently, Edu is the one that made the call to Southgate and said Ben White doesn't want to be selected for England squads at this moment in time. Southgate threw him under the bus a little bit, I think, by announcing that. I don't think he had to do that, but it's his right if that's what he wants to do. I don't think it's an accident that we have released the Ben White contract news on the day that Southgate threw him under the bus for not wanting to play for England.
I hadn't seen that yet, so that's really interesting. Yeah, Southgate seems to me to be someone that can be bruised pretty easily, and yeah, he seems a bit sensitive, I guess.
Yeah, there is. Whose book was I reading? I can't remember whose book it was. I don't know if it was Merce. Someone who was a player at Villa before he basically become like a player coach or whatever there. Or was it Middlesbrough? No, it might have been Middlesbrough. I think it was Middlesbrough. And he became player manager at Middlesbrough. And it was Paul Merson. No, it was Ray Parlour. Apologies, it was Ray Parlour. Ray Parlour played with Southgate at Middlesbrough. And Southgate was one of the boys, and all of a sudden he got he basically got promoted to player manager. In his first introductory meeting with the team, Ray Parlour made a joke, and he never played for Middlesbrough again after that. He was thrown into the reserves, and it was Southgate kind of laying down the law. You're no longer my teammate. I'm now your boss. And Southgate just strikes me as that kind of character.
Yeah. Petty.
Yeah.
He seems a bit petty. Yeah.
Basically, yeah. And that's it. But that's fair. And quite frankly, I just hope Steve Holland can now have a fight with Declan Rice and Bukayo Saka, and we can pull them out of the England squad as well.
Yeah.
So, long may it continue. Give Southgate and Steve Holland 10-year contracts, please.
I find it interesting too. I mean, I think everybody knows like Ben White. He's not a football fan or anything, right? He doesn't. What do you say? His family never really watched.
He doesn't watch it. He doesn't. He didn't say he wasn't a fan. He said he doesn't watch it.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we're like a lot of players who would like dream of representing their country at the World Cup or whatever. Ben White's just never really struck me as that kind of guy. So
it obviously isn't that big a deal because it's his choice not to play. At the end of the day, he's England's best right back and he's England's best centre back. He would play in either of those positions if he wanted to play, and he doesn't want to play. Like I said, for me, that's great. I mean, I don't know if you saw this morning as well, Kevin De Bruyne has already pulled out of the Belgium squad.
I saw that.
With a slight groin injury, which will be okay the day after the Belgian team meet up. No surprises there. I'm fully expecting Erling Haaland to pull out with a broken fingernail after the weekend as well. So that's it. I just wish we could get a few more of our boys to pull out. But good on Ben White not playing for England. I'm fully behind that. I love it, to be quite honest with you. Go on.
I was just going to say it's I mean, like you said, he's I think unquestionably the best. Well, shit, I guess there's Trent, but they're different players, right?
Look.
Totally different.
Let's put this to bed right now, right? Ben White is about 177 times better than Trent Alexander-Arnold, right? That's it. Trent Alexander-Arnold is very popular because he hits long 50-yard passes across the field. Ben White can do that. Ben White has Saka standing 5 yards away from him. Why would he smack a ball 70 yards when he can pass it 5 yards to Bukayo Saka? Trent Alexander is the pure definition of a Hollywood player. He's a weak link at the back. And Ben White's got more assists than him. So what is it exactly that Trent Alexander-Arnold does better than Ben White? I don't buy that. I say put that to bed now. Trent Alexander-Arnold is not as good a footballer as Ben White. He might be a brilliant passer of the ball. That's not enough to be a better footballer than Ben White. He's just not.
Well, I don't want to touch that too much. But I will say, you know, he's at least one of two top right backs, and he probably is better than almost anybody in the center back pool as well. I agree with what you said, but it's also, you know, he's got a great relationship with Rice, who he'd be close to as a defensive midfielder. He's got a great relationship with Saka, who would be his winger in front of him. It's just crazy. It's cutting off your nose to, you know, and spite your, you know what I mean? You know that saying, I messed it up. But it's just crazy that they can't put this behind them and still call them up.
Yeah, agreed. And long may it continue.
Yeah, so, yeah. I mean, for sure, it's good for us. I just, you know, if Ben White wanted it, I'd be aggrieved by it. But you know, obviously, he doesn't care too much. So it's
No. So the other bit of contract news, the Takehiro Tomiyasu contract we're hearing is actually signed. It just hasn't been announced yet. Like I said, I don't think there's any coincidence that Arsenal put the Ben White news out today. I don't think they would have done that had this England stuff not broke. I think they would have held it back. But the Tomiyasu one is signed. I've got mixed feelings about this one. I think Tomiyasu is a great player, and I'm glad to have him when he's fit. I just don't think that over the previous 3 or 4 years, he's been available often enough to warrant a new contract. I guess the counter argument to that is, well, we'd probably struggle to sell him because he's barely played again. And maybe if you sign him to a new contract, then he either performs to the level where you don't want to sell him, or he performs to the level where you can sell him for a lot more than you can sell him right now. But with the best indication of future injuries being past injuries, I'm not so sure this is a smart move.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I think all your points are valid. I mean, I would say, you know...
And by the way, these points also relate to Oleg Zinchenko, just so that I'm being absolutely fair about this. Everyone knows that I love Zinchenko. But these points that I'm making about Tomiyasu also apply to Zinchenko. And Zinchenko has 2 years left in the summer. You know, I'm already on record saying I think he's going to go. And I think he should go because he's not available enough. And I don't think we can carry players who just aren't available.
Yeah, I would say I don't know off the top of my head, but just going by squad, you know, like squad stature. I mean, I imagine Tomiyasu's not on super high wages, and I imagine he didn't get a massive bump either because of that. Wouldn't you say Zinchenko's probably on quite a bit higher, just considering his profile?
I would have thought so. Yeah, I mean, he's come from Manchester City, where he's a multiple league winner. So yeah, I would imagine he's on a lot more than Tomiyasu. It's just, you know, I just don't think we said it before, right? We've got 5 injury-prone players in this squad. I think we've got to start whittling them down. If you're giving Tomiyasu a new contract, I don't think that you can carry Zinchenko as well because they play the same position. I don't think we can sell Partey, so I think Partey is going to be here next season no matter what. And then you've got Emil Smith-Rowe and you've got Gabriel Jesus. Gabriel Jesus is going to be here next season. I'm sure of that. Emil Smith-Rowe, I'm not sure about because it doesn't seem like Arteta trusts him. But the point really is over the new contracts. I don't think you can really give any of those 5 significant new contracts. So I don't know that I would have done this with Tomiyasu.
Yeah, I feel about the same. You know, I don't know if there's
he's a really good player. So, you know, if you're hoping that all of a sudden he's going to stop getting these injuries, and if that happens, then it looks like a fantastic move, right? Like, I mean, it's a brilliant move to tie him down if he can stay fit. We just haven't seen anything that says he's going to stay fit. I mean, he's still out now. He was back on the bench on Tuesday night, but he hasn't played for us. You know, he went away to the Asian Games and hasn't played for us since he got back.
Yeah, and I'm with you too. You know, we're carrying a few too many like perennially injured players that I hope we shed.
We need to lose a couple of them. We have
Yeah.
to use a couple of them.
Yeah.
We can't carry on like this. I mean, I think, as I said, I think it probably is time for Zinchenko to move on. It's absolutely 100% time for Thomas Partey to move on. I just don't know that that's a deal that we can actually get done.
Yeah, and I was kind of hopeful for maybe Saudi coming back in, but I just saw some statements from like a Saudi spokesperson saying they're not planning on
going
big
nuts
transfer fees this summer.
Yeah, I mean that was never gonna, especially considering their average attendances haven't changed. In fact, I think they've even gone down.
It's basically the Chinese Super League.
It was never going to work. I don't
flash in the pan.
It was never going to work. It was a stupid idea.
Well, of course, it came out in the summer to completely bail Chelsea out, and nobody else was going to benefit.
Yeah, basically. And then disappeared. So
yeah.
Okay, mate. All right. Well, that was a reasonably long one. So thank you for coming on tonight. Enjoyed that. Like I enjoyed the win on Tuesday night. If you're around, maybe we can do a quick reaction to the draw tomorrow after it happens. We'll talk about that.
Sure.
Off air and see if we can, even if it's just 15 minutes, just to talk about who we got. So yeah, I'll be waking up early to catch the draw happening. So I will speak to you tomorrow, and hopefully we'll be back with you for a quick pod as well. So goodbye.
All right, perfect. Good night.